Welcome. As many of you know, last month marked a new era for Black philanthropy in Washington State. August was officially declared Black Philanthropy Month for Washington by Governor Jay Inslee. We honored this month with a series of inspiring conversations with Black leaders and changemakers. And tonight, the theme of our discussion is building on Black Philanthropy Month. We will use this time to discuss key lessons from our discussions from last month and continue to explore ways to keep the momentum. I am Andrea Capaign-Sanderson, co-founder of the Black Future Co-op Fund, and I will serve as this evening's moderator. Before we get started, for our guests who would like closed captioning, auto-generated captions are available on Facebook. Please turn them on in your settings. We want to start by acknowledging the land upon which we are standing. It is the unceded land of the Duwamish and Coast Salish peoples, home to the Duwamish, Suquamish, Snoqualmie, Tulalip, Muckleshoot, and Puyallup nations. We also recognize that others on this call may be on different territories, and so we want to acknowledge the importance of all lands and Indigenous people who are active stewards and shapers of communities. In addition, we recognize the vital contributions, innovations, culture, and labor with which this country was built by enslaved people who were brutally taken from the continent of Africa and brought to the US, as well as the contributions by people indigenous to this land and by other immigrants, whether voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, or forced into labor. We honor with gratitude their contributions and lift up their enduring spirit. What is Black Philanthropy Month? Black Philanthropy Month is an inclusive opportunity to highlight or illuminate the ingenuity and transformative impact of Black generosity, while also encouraging increased investments in Black communities. It was started by Dr. Jackie Bouvier Copeland and the Pan-African Women's Philanthropy Network in 2011, and it is recognized worldwide. This is the first year that organizers in our state, including the Black Future Co-op Fund, Morgan Dawson and Lindsay Hill, ESK Family Fund, Renton Regional Community Foundation, Philanthropy Northwest, and Seattle Foundation have come together to support this intentional focus for our community. Our work included elevating our cause statewide and securing a proclamation from Governor Jay Inslee proclaiming August as Black Philanthropy Month in Washington. And though Black Philanthropy Month 2021 has ended, our commitment to this cause continues. We are determined to sustain our efforts towards building Black generational wealth, health, and well-being. Before we dig into tonight's discussion, let's take a look at some of the highlights from this past month.
In August 2021, we celebrated Black Philanthropy Month. Community leaders gathered to demystify philanthropy and move toward Black abundance.
At Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network, we recognize that as Black folks and as people of color, as trans and queer folks, that we have historically had to provide community care for one another in order to thrive and survive and move towards collective liberation.
They bring people in and there's no support. So I'm saying this, and a lot of people are going to hear, which is, well, then I don't hire people of color until my organization is ready. Your organization is never going to be ready. Double everyone's professional development. That's your first solution. Hire people of color, double everyone's first professional development.
We've got to figure out the balance between burning it down so something new can grow and making a bridge to people who were a part of, who understand the systems because we've engaged with them over time.
I think one of the things that I know is very much out of balance is where we have dollars, where Black folks have the dollars, where are we investing them? And when I'm saying where are we investing them, I don't just mean giving them away. I mean, who is acting on our behalf as our investment manager of funds?
Accountability is about, are you willing to fund power building and communities of color to the point where you are no longer the dominant party? Where it's not, where they can say, we can say what's important. As a Black queer woman, there are very different things between me and maybe a Vietnamese immigrant on what's important to them. But are you willing to hand over that power that we have as individuals and communities to us to tell you what's important to us and to hold you to account to do things different?
In order to get to where we are today, it had to be a collective. It had to be a genuine connection between all of us in our community to uplift each other and to challenge each other and to push each other to get to where we are today.
Collective progress and community well-being are responsibilities that we as Black people hold and cannot shake even if we wanted to. It truly is ancestral. As we saw in the highlights, Black prosperity requires this really intentional, significant investment in Black communities. And by this coming together through this partnership for Black Philanthropy Month, we are able to collectively strengthen these investments in Black well-being while lifting up, as you heard me say in that video, ancestral ways of giving back to our communities. Joining me in this segment are my fellow co-founders of the fund, Angela Jones. Angela is the new director of the Washington State Initiative at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Most recently, she served as chief executive officer of Washington STEM, a statewide nonprofit working to ensure that youth experiencing poverty have access to high-quality STEM education. Angela's passion, service, and leadership in Washington State's education system spans more than 25 years. Welcome, Angela. Also joining us is, last but not least, is Tawana Nobles. Tawana is senator for the 28th Legislative District of Washington State. She also serves as the president and CEO of the Tacoma Urban League, where she leads programs to strengthen and support the local Black community in social equity and economic independence. And I'm sad to say that Michelle Merriweather, our fourth co-founder, will not be joining us tonight. Michelle has experienced an unexpected death in her family and needed to step away. But ladies, welcome. I'll get right down to our questions. Angela, given your work has had statewide impact and implications, how would you describe the significance of Black Philanthropy Month's statewide importance?
I have so much to say. And hello, ladies. Good evening. And good evening, audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. One of the things I keep thinking about is Black philanthropy. We've been here. And, I'm so glad that we were able to celebrate and have the proclamation from the governor, but we've been here, and Black philanthropy has looked different. It's taken different forms, whether it be from the church or the collective communities, making sure that families have what they need. And so I think we've had the privilege of our community allowing us to formalize it a little bit and to be able to connect the communities. Like, our communities have been out there, which is why, the We See You grants that we did, recognizing communities that for decades have already been out there and trying to help. And now thinking about how we raise a level of awareness of what Black philanthropy is and could look like, and really beyond Black philanthropy. I think our role statewide is to say, this is what philanthropy could look like if you're really trying to help the Black community and connect the Black community. Part of it is funding, right? That's a big part of it, resources, right? But then also connecting with each other as resources. There's always been power in our collective, if you look throughout history, of us coming together to figure out what those resources are that we need. And one story that I'll share before we hand it over to our great senator is when we brought our first set of grantees together to welcome them, congratulate them, see if they had questions on the initial round of funding. They were really appreciative of the funding, but they were also appreciative of bringing of us bringing everybody into that space to connect. And that is the power of us working statewide, not just in Tacoma or in King County or in Spokane or Whatcom or Vancouver or Yakima, but saying we're out here, we've been out here. So what does that look like to do this work around our wealth and health and well-being as a collective, and being clear about the resources we expect to have as that statewide collective?
I love that. And I love that you highlight that it was this cross the state perspective, right? Rather than focusing on a specific region in the state, which is what we've typically seen. And so I remember being in that room where we felt the energy and just the yearning for our organizations and our people who are all across the state, Eastern Washington, Western Washington, to be together. So thank you for highlighting that. Tawana, as a Black Future Co-op Fund architect and state senator, what are some of the lessons learned from the Black Philanthropy Month conversations that you think will be useful to inform or for policy discussions and for philanthropic strategy development?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Andrea. Hello to both of you, and hello to everyone watching today. I am excited about this question and the way that my roles are able to merge as someone working in philanthropy and a newly elected state senator. And what I heard and learned during Black Philanthropy Month, and what I have known for a long time, is that Black folks are leading really innovative work all across the country. And as Angela mentioned, they're leading really innovative and powerful work that's solving solutions to problems here in Washington State. And the Black Future Co-op Fund, gets to invest in helping to, solve some of those challenges and problems that, our communities are facing. What I know about working as a state senator, but also just, working in government, having a relationship with government in general, is in philanthropy, we are trying to help to solve public problems, and government is doing the same thing. And neither of us can do it on our own. And it's a really beautiful thing to consider a strategic partnership. And actually, it's not a new idea or concept. There are philanthropic and government relations and strategic partnership offices that have launched across the country, that will continue to launch as we as individual entities see the value in a relationship where government can scale a lot of the things that we are trying to do in philanthropy. They can help to scale some of those solutions to the challenges and problems that our communities face. Now, government is restricted by, budgets and election years, where if your government flips, parties, that can change the type of problem solving that a state can be looking at. But for the most part, our governments have enough power and networks and connections to scale a lot of what we're doing on the ground. And what I love about philanthropy is, similar to the organizations that we're supporting, philanthropy has autonomy. We can invest in innovation. We can invest in ways to think about solving problems that maybe no one else has thought about. And especially as we talk about by us and for us, we get to invest in solutions for Black people by Black people, because no one else is going to know our community better than we are. And I know that that is the message that we are trying to communicate to state government, that you have to invest and create public policies and create budgets that demonstrate your commitment to racial justice, to equity, to the things that you say. But it has to show up in the way that you spend your money and develop your policy and develop your policy priorities. And we're seeing that for sure since I've been a senator these past 9 months. But I think together we have a really incredible partnership to just take ownership in a very collaborative way to build on what we both can do in ways that we both may be also restricted to simply help community. But I love that in states even like Michigan, that type of work is already happening, where philanthropic leaders are doing more than showing up and advocating for policy, but they're saying, we can create funds and ways to like I said, scale some of the work that we're trying to do on the ground on the state level. And I've seen some of that too in Washington State with different funds that have been set up. I mean, our state government has a very philanthropic mindset, but I think we just need to be more strategic. And hopefully, in my time here in the state legislature, that's something that I can help us to continue to think about and forge forward. And my time, with the Black Future Co-op Fund, which is forever. But I just think there's such a great opportunity to work together and use our strengths and our challenges as, philanthropy and state government to just help our community to move our state ahead and make those very strategic investments to solve problems that we know are impacting the Black community, but making sure it's by and for the Black community, and our voices and our work is at the forefront of all of that decision making and all of those investments.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I appreciate your view too, Tawana, where you are a leader from the community. You're leading organizations, you're helping to lead this fund, but now you're also a policymaker, right? And you get to go with that view of being on the ground, being a leader here, and shaping how government maybe can utilize its power differently to serve its community. So I'm excited to see what happens in the legislature. Excited to support what may come. And so let's hang on for the ride, right? So the next question, this is the same question for both of you, but Angela, I'll have you go first. In what ways do you think that Black Philanthropy Month was a catalyst for change in how philanthropy should work in and with community?
There was a session, I think it might have been the last session, that really hit home, and there were pieces of the video that you showed earlier from that panel where they were talking about how does philanthropy make space for us. So even in spaces where, I'm in a new space, right? How do I bring that in? I just sent out my very first newsletter in my role. And one of the things I acknowledge too is that I still have an accountability to my community. I know from where I came, I went into education because I had to advocate for myself to successfully navigate the education system. And I was concerned if there were Black and brown students who looked like me, who didn't feel like they had a voice or they didn't have agency, and I wanted to be there for them. And so, I still exist as that person. And so what does that look like now in this seat where I get the privilege of serving as a funder? And, how do you go in and be additive? I was talking to my boss and saying, like, you hired me for a reason, and I come with all of these things. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is how I make sure that I'm being a good ancestor. And so as I go into, a new system for me, that, type of role I've never been in before, how do I not lose sight of that? How do I hear the voices of our people who have said, we have tried to work in philanthropy. We have tried to work in certain spaces, but there are policies, there are systems, there are things that have historically been there that have not been there for us because they were not created by us, and people don't understand us. And so what's my role and responsibility of helping, that system, this new system I'm working in, to understand how to actually be a partner and co-create and in many ways make the space and get out of the way, right? And make the space. And we have to do the same thing as the Black Future Co-op Fund partners. I think it would be very easy for the four of us to be like, hey, we created this, here are all of our passion projects, but that's not the spirit in which we created this. We all came together after George Floyd's murder and said, enough, and we're done waiting for people to do this for us. So now, for me, it's like, I'm going to go into the space because I want to be a good ancestor. It's a hard and daunting space to be in as a Black woman, and hold this space as a Black Future Co-op Fund partner. And how do we hear the voices of our people, no matter which hat we are wearing? And how do we represent our people? And quite frankly, as I move into this new space, I really feel the weight of that responsibility. One of the messages I sent out today, I said, this is the time where I have to realize that we can do hard things. This new role is a hard thing. This, piece that we embarked on to start this fund is a hard thing, but our people have survived harder things. And so, my piece as I go into this role is being able to be myself in a space where most people don't look like me, and being able to say, I came in education because of this. I want to become a funder because of this. Now, let me help you understand. If you say you want to help, a lot of funders right now are saying, well, we want to help Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. Okay. Are you going to help them by doing to them? Or are we going to help by walking alongside and, like I said earlier, in some ways, stepping back and saying, let's really understand what co-create means. Not here are the 5 ways I can help you. Now pick one. That's giving a menu of doing too. It's how do we really say, what is it you need? I've heard you. This is what you're struggling with. And you actually have the solution, but you don't have the resources. And so how do we walk alongside in that way as partners? And that's going to take, for mine and the new organization I'm sitting in, I've got to rebuild some trust in some ways. And I know that, right? Because now I'm part of the giant. Yeah. And in some ways, even we have found, even as we created this fund, where, some of our people, our own people, even some of you may be watching tonight, we're like, wait a minute, who are they? And are they real? And do they really have money? And do they really care about us? And when they get all of these funds, donated, are they really going to share it with us? And are they really going to give us space? And so, to those of you out there watching, we really do want to share this with you. We need your voice. We need you as part of this collective. We started it, but it's not ours.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Like, we started it and it's ours in the bigger sense of all of the Black Washingtonians here. We want to build this with you so that it's here 100 years later, 200 years later. And so as I'm learning things in this space as a Black Future Co-op Fund partner, I'm also trying to bring that into the space as the new director of the Gates Foundation to say, okay, what does this mean for me? And how do I partner with other allies at the Gates Foundation to help move some of these things forward? Like, I know, for example, Amy Carter is someone who's been working with the group. What does that partnership look like moving forward? So I have learned so many lessons from those panels that we had the privilege of being a part of listening to, where our people spoke their truths about philanthropy. And that's what I'm excited about, continuing this, and extending this, that we don't need to just have this conversation during Black Philanthropy Month. Every month is Black Philanthropy Month. And so I'm excited about that piece of it, because I am learning as I'm going, in some ways building the plan as I'm flying it.
Preach, Angela, preach. Tawana, same for you. In what ways do you think that Black Philanthropy Month was a catalyst for change in how philanthropy should work in and with community?
Yeah, I definitely think it informed people on the purpose and history of Black Philanthropy Month, which was a new learning for me as well. This was the first time that I have celebrated Black Philanthropy Month, but to know that there is an entire month, the month of August, where we do get to inform others, include them in the work of making sure that we're investing in Black communities, and celebrating the ways that Black communities have invested, and recognizing that there is Black philanthropic leadership that exists, but there needs to be more work around that awareness. And that's why I really love Black Philanthropy Month, because it's a month of education and celebration, and also just recognizing that we want to continue to, and at a much higher level, invest in Black folks and in the ways that we have worked so hard from the beginning of time to help to solve, as I keep saying, those public problems that exist in our communities. And I mean, from the beginning of the ways that we have, invested in our churches, invested in education programs, the ways that our sororities and fraternities have invested, the ways that we have in our community stood up resources for healthcare, or stood up resources and made investments so that we could push the civil rights movement and social justice movements forward, to start organizations like the Urban League. We've been at this for so long, and to know that fewer than 3% of the dollars flowing nationally are coming back to us, the creators of some of this philanthropic work, the nurturers of this philanthropic work in this country, and we've been pushed out. And so Black Philanthropy Month is an opportunity for us to take up space, to take back and claim what is ours, to get recognition, and to celebrate the ways that we have been contributing to this country in a philanthropic way from the beginning of time. This is not new to our community, but like so many other things, we've been pushed out and others have been able to take credit and keep us out. So it's a month for us just to remind ourselves and to, ask for increased, donations and contributions into buy-in for organizations. And it just makes me happy. I think it's a catalyst for that awareness and education, but also just happiness, because I get to remember and be proud that my ancestors from the beginning of time laid this groundwork for me. I'm not creating anything new. I'm just being a part of keeping that legacy going and asking for what's ours, not asking for more, not trying to earn anything, asking for what's ours. So I'm excited that so many folks got to participate with us, whether it was in panels or making those investments, but it was just such a beautiful opportunity. And I'm already excited for August of 2022, Black Philanthropy Month. But in this fund is Black Philanthropy Month every single day. But to celebrate with community, I do look forward to next year's celebration and programming that we get to offer and be a part of.
Hear, hear, Senator Nobles. So switching gears a little bit, one key element of planning Washington Black Philanthropy Month was developing a visual style that resonated with the community and that represented our vision for the month itself. So recently I sat down with artist and designer Eskinder Woldiab to discuss how the Washington Black Philanthropy Month visual brand was developed and how Black culture influenced his design. So let's hear from him for a moment. Hello, I'm Andrea Capaign Sanderson, one of the co-founders of the Black Future Co-op Fund, and joining me today is...
My name is Eskinder Woldiab, and I've been a visual designer at Pyramid Communications for over 3 years now, working on a variety of projects with Andrea at Black Future Co-op Fund, BIPOC ED Coalition, Bird Bar Place, and many other projects.
We've experienced so much together so far, Eskinder. In fact, today we're here to talk about specifically Black Philanthropy Month and how you helped bring our vision for the look and feel for that campaign together. And you did such an incredible job of designing the look and feel, right, for Black Philanthropy Month. I feel like it spoke to who we are and why this work matters to us as Black people. So I'll jump into my first question. We're here to get behind the scenes, to do sort of like this deconstructing of how we created this look and feel. So my first question is, when thinking about the creation of our Black Philanthropy Month look and feel, what were the primary areas of focus for you? Was it mood? Was it color, symbolism, messaging? Tell us about your thought process.
Yeah, so when approaching the look and feel development for the Black Philanthropy Month, I think I was primarily focused on locating a symbol that could bring to life the essence of Black philanthropy. And I think that's why I landed on food, particularly okra. As a first generation Ethiopian American, so much of my life has been spent in the in-between worlds, living as a Black man in America, but also as a son of refugees. So a lot of the visual language that I look for and am inspired by are those pieces that could sort of connect worlds. And okra felt very appropriate for this because it's a staple in African cuisine as well as African American cuisine. And it's really this direct connection between the two continents and our shared history and legacies. And it's also a way of thinking about philanthropy outside of the institution. And thinking, what does it mean to be Black and give to one another? What does it mean to think about giving from a spiritual sense versus one that is wrapped up in an institution that has historically been created and derived from inequities in our country?
I love how you lift up the theme of okra, right? So after working with you on this journey, I did my own research on okra, and me being from the Caribbean, we have a lot of okra dishes. I was very familiar with okra and I love okra. And I really appreciated that it became an inspiration for you throughout this process. In fact, I learned that okra originated in Africa, right? And was carried throughout the Afro-Atlantic slave routes and thereby the rest of the world by our ancestors. on those gruesome voyages during the transatlantic slave trade. So in addition to the representation of the ochre and the brand, walk us through the other brand elements, such as the imprint, because you do such a beautiful job of carrying it through, again, from the diaspora, the African diaspora, but also intergenerationally. So talk with us a little bit about the imprint.
Yeah, the imprint. So I think one of our primary goals was to connect the Black Philanthropy event to the Black Future Co-op Fund organization. And to do that, we brought in some graphic elements from the Black Future Co-op Fund to the existing work for the Black Philanthropy Month look and feel. And one of those elements was the imprint or texture that you kind of see pushed towards the back of the ochre symbol or logo mark. And that imprint actually was inspired by the idea of a thumbprint. In particular, thinking about how the Black Future Co-op Fund was founded to bring a Black mission and vision and thumbprint or fingerprint to Black or philanthropy right now, which, you know, I think if we were to look at philanthropy, it's a predominantly white institution that has served white folks and has been there to sort of allow them to give back to communities in the way that they see fit. And Black Future Co-op Fund was this response to that. It was a thinking of how can we as Black people take into our own hands, into our own accountability, the giving that we want to do. So using that texture was an idea of taking a thumbprint from the Black community and implanting it or imprinting it onto the institution of philanthropy as it is now.
Yeah, so I'll dive right back into some of our questions. That was a incredible interview with Eskinder. Like I said, he helped us bring our sort of like the vision for Black Philanthropy Month together in this look and feel based on, you know, where each of our perspectives were on what this meant to us, what it felt like to us, what it should look like. And so Alex did an incredible job, as I mentioned, in pulling it all together. So I'll dive right into the other questions. You know, based on what we've been discussing today, ladies, and hearing, you know, from the creation of the brand to what the various discussion sessions that we had throughout the month of August, what were some major takeaways for each of you? And Angela, I'll start with you. What are some, and it could be with the video we just saw, right, with the discussion with Eskinder, but also throughout the entire month, when we rolled out these discussions, community care, right? Really lifting up that giving happens in our community, though we don't get credit for it. But also, what Tawana mentioned, there is a disparity in giving to Black communities versus other communities. So given the range of things that we heard and we learned during Black Philanthropy Month, what are some major takeaways for you, Angela?
First, I'm going to start with that video just hit me right in my heart. And this is where, you know, Tawana said, you know, for us, by us, and watching him as a young professional and knowing the role he played, like he walked us through every step of the way of figuring out what the look and feel of our brand could be. And, you know, I'm assuming everybody can see the same screen I'm seeing. And so that thumbprint is actually on the screen behind our boxes. And every time I see that, it just has such meaning. And I'm like, tearing up over here thinking like, this is us. We are such a beautiful people and we can do hard things. We can do incredible things. And we're so smart, and we have been smart. You know, things were done to our people. And so, you know, we have catching up to do because of that, but it's not because we lacked the wherewithal. It's not because we lacked the ability to do it. It's because we lacked access and opportunity. And so just to watch a video and think, this is us. He helped, you know, create that. And it's someone who looks like us. And to have that representation is so important. So for the panels, I was like, look at the representation, like, look at us. You know, as we went through the month, look at us, look at what we can do. And look at what we can do when we put our heads together as a collective. So that was a big takeaway for me, and to be able to see us in a concentrated way, right? the other piece is something I don't know if it was either you or Twana mentioned, is that philanthropy isn't giving $1 billion. You know, it can be $1, it can be $5, it can be $500,000. We have been philanthropists. We don't meet the definition because we didn't create it. Right. And so, you know, so that, you know, it was so amazing to see Black people in philanthropy again on a screen and going like, that's us. And we've been here, we've been doing the work. And in some ways, you know, people haven't moved out of the way to let us do it in a way that was really authentic for our people. And then the third thing I would say was I took away, you know, launching my new role. It's like, okay, Angela, what's your job here? What's your assignment? What's your purpose? What's your responsibility? And I take that very seriously. And it's going to be hard. You know, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be hard because we're trying to change a system that's been in place for a long time. I don't mind doing hard things. And so I'm excited about that, and many, many more, but I'll hand the mic to Twana.
Thank you. And I think for me, there were just so many takeaways. We've reiterated a lot of them, but we just have so much more work to do. And I'm grateful for the Black Future Co-op Fund because we are positioned to make sure that we are, you know, working with our community, learning more about the issues in our community, not assuming that because we are Black that we have all the answers, even though there are 4 of us, but we recognize and will continue to recognize how diverse our community is. But I think another major takeaway and message that I heard was, you know, folks who have dollars and are looking to invest have to, you know, put their money where their mouths are, have to begin to practice and not just preach. Because there are so many challenges that we face as a society. And then we know in so many areas, those same challenges disproportionately are impacting the Black community at a greater rate. So there's so much more work ahead of us. And Black Philanthropy Month is only, you know, 10 years old. And, you know, but the work of Black philanthropy, like I said, has existed from the beginning of time. But each year when we get to have this celebration, we have to remember, like this year with the pandemic, and now I'm just thinking about in our state, the eviction moratorium being extended, but one day is going to have to end. But there are real challenges that our community is facing, and we have to continue to demand that investments are made in our community, that folks are paying attention, are thinking about our health, wealth, and well-being, and that the national philanthropy and honestly, the wealth and philanthropy in this state is doing something to fund the Black community, put funds in the Black community, and to help to make sure that they're being a part of the solution. But like I said, I'm excited to be positioned where I am and to be that constant reminder that there is more work to be done, but also, and I'm proud to be a part of that work and not just someone pointing out there's a problem, someone needs to do something, but I get to work with all of you as architects and all of our partners and consultants, everyone who is supporting us, to be a constant reminder that there has to be that investment, that funders need to step up.
Yeah, so this leads me right to my next question. Angela, I'll punt this one to you first. What are the most pressing issues for the organizers, right? As organizers of Black Philanthropy Month to address post-August? I love that you said earlier, Black Philanthropy Month is every month, right? So we shouldn't just concentrate our activities to August. So what are those most pressing issues for us organizers that we need to be thinking about?
Golly, so many. I'll share a few and I'll leave some for Twana to bring up. The pandemic's not over. Our community still needs resources, and urgently. You know, Twana mentioned, you know, the moratorium extension, you know, for rent, but that won't go on forever. What does that still look like as people lose jobs or they lose family members to the virus or different things because then all the other issues that were already happening in life didn't stop because we were in a pandemic. And so we all already lacked resources and support. And now the organizations and things that were in place need additional resources and support. You know, how do we identify those folks? How do we, you know, think about how we were able to fund, and how do we help connect other funders who say they want to support, the Black community and operationalize it. To say it is one thing. Like, since George Floyd's murder, we've been seeing so many proclamations and revamped equity statements and DEI work. And I think every DEI consultant is taxed with the amount of work people want them to do. And to operationalize supporting the Black community is not rocket science to me. But the hard work is, for some reasons we didn't create, people don't trust our community with money. And so how do we bridge that? I think we have a responsibility and opportunity to do that in the roles we play, no matter which hat we're wearing. Name a hat one of us wears. We have that ability. And so that was a big thing for me that's urgent, is trust that we know the solutions. And if there's a place where we have a gap where we do need support, we're a pretty verbal oral culture. We're going to tell you we need technical assistance. We need some support with our back office operations for business, and when we tell you those things, how are you going to come alongside our communities to actually provide the right amount of funding and support? I mean, we've heard of billions of dollars, being earmarked, towards Black communities and Latinx communities and Indigenous communities. But show us the money. We have a goal of 25 million. We wanted that in the first year, and we got just about halfway. And 25 million and $1 billion are two very different things. And so if there's more than $1 billion pledged across this country, show us the money so that we can make sure our community has it. And so those continue. They've been urgent. They continue to be urgent as the virus, continues to be relentless, as people's small businesses, most of our Black businesses are small business owners who are doing their best, to keep doors open. How do we support that? Black-led nonprofits. And we already know, before, all of us have led nonprofits before the pandemic. That was a struggle, when we know that the giving ratios to Black-led organizations are much, much smaller percentage, not even in double digits. And so, all of those things, to me, I've got a sense of urgency. And so how do we deal with our processes and all the things that government requires in order to give away money while still meeting the urgent needs of humans that we say we care about?
Yeah, as you said, much to be done. Tawana, same for you. What are the most pressing issues for organizers of Black Philanthropy Month to address post-August?
Yeah, well, I definitely think we can draw from some of the funding principles of Black Philanthropy Month. I think we need to continue to make sure that we're always thinking about funding from a social justice and equity lens. I think we need to make sure that as we are communicating and talking about investments and funding, that we continue to highlight that the Black community is not a monolith. And it's so important to think about all of our intersections. I love that even in our playback video, it talked about, we are trans, we are straight, we have a variety of pronouns and abilities and identities. We are diverse in our socioeconomic status. And so we need to make sure that we don't ever listen to one person or four people to decide what's right for the Black community, but that we make sure that we're consistently thinking about the research and the diversity and getting closer to the community on the ground and what the community needs, as in all of its forms and diverse forms and diverse needs. I think also organizers need to, as Angela talked about, trust the Black community's knowledge, innovation, expertise, creativity. I think we are just a mighty, strong, beautiful, royal people, and we need to be, trusted more with our abilities to find solutions that don't look like mainstream, white delusion solutions, that they are solutions that fit who we are as a community and are equally valid, work for us and work for others. There's so much more that I think organizers need to think about, but I think I'll just, end with those.
Can I add one thing, Andrea?
Absolutely.
That one of the other things that sticks in my mind is that we stay working together.
Yeah.
You know, the folks who came together for Black Philanthropy Month, that we keep those touch points, because we also have to continue to build relationship among the Black community in this state. And, you know, like I said before, the needs in the Black community in the Tri-Cities, and yes, there are Black people in the Tri-Cities, are different than, you know, the folks in Wenatchee or the folks in Walla Walla. I mean, we literally have Black community members in almost every county in the state of Washington. Now, the numbers may be different. We know King County will have the highest, King, Pierce, Snohomish, but we out here, we're everywhere. And how do we build that connectedness? And I think it starts with us as those who have been willing to take the charge and say, we're going to lead in this philanthropy piece. How do we come to some agreements and continue leading and not just come together for the month of August?
That's perfect. That leads me to my next question for you, Angela. How do you envision this conversation, right, expanding, and what actions should be taken to bring more of the Black community into these conversations and actions? I so appreciate that you've always been our guiding light when we created this fund around looking at all 39 counties in the state of Washington and not just focusing on Western Washington, which, yes, over 51% of us do live in Western Washington. But as you said, we're in rural counties, we're in coastal counties. And we need to take that into account when we're thinking about the fund and resourcing our entire state and all Black communities. So how do you envision this conversation expanding? And again, what actions should be taken to bring more of the Black community into these conversations and actions?
Look, I'm going to put this out there before I've even talked to y'all about this. I would love to see some kind of summit for our people. Like right now, we have to come together virtually, but could you imagine a space where we're coming together for a variety of reasons and with different skill sets and interests? Because when we had that small group of 40 gather, the power in that room and the pride in that room, and to hear people say like, wait, what? You're over there and you've been doing what? We need to talk. That power of connection that continues to foster hope and keep us inspired and motivated. We need that. But that also gave us the moment to understand that, wow, we're disconnected. And that's an issue we need to figure out. You know, how do we have that directory where people can click on a county to say, these are all the Black owned businesses or the Black led nonprofits, or here's the, you know, Black leadership or whatever. You know, our people, we're really good. Like we can tell you what churches are in every county. That's just something we know we've been able to do. We need to take that same radar and do that for all of the things we do. Here are the Black doctors, make this connection. So I want to see some kind of summit. But in the meantime, until we can get to that thing, how do we start growing that? Much like the BIPOC ED Coalition. Like that is such an incredible start. You know, I've been able to be in those rooms from time to time and to feel the power of folks pressing on some different things and sharing thoughts and ideas and healing and resilience. And so how do we invite people into those gathering spaces? What do we create for the small business owner who literally has no time for this, who can't get on this live stream and listen to us? What is that space? Like it may have to look different. And so how do we create those rooms and spaces? And that may be the small business owners, and we hear from them and they say, but this is what we actually need, Angela. We don't need your summit that you're talking about. We need this time with these business professionals to think about this. And so again, all of that to say, we need time to continue gathering, you know, connecting, hearing, and then strategizing from what we've heard and that includes not just what people are grappling with, but the solutions they're saying they need. And so I don't know what that space looks like. We had a first great thing with the Zoom call that we did. The other thing too is we don't always have to be there.
Right.
So how do we empower, like I had a group of folks in Spokane send me a photo from their Juneteenth. They gathered. They didn't need us there to gather. And so I'm just grappling with what do those types of things, you know, look like as we move forward? Are we happy to be this hub to provide support, but we're empowering our people in their communities and supporting the things they need in their regions. And so that's my aspirational piece.
I love it. Summit, here we come. And I know, as you said, summit won't work for everyone. Tawana, a question for you too. How do you envision this conversation expanding and what actions should be taken to bring more of the Black community into these conversations and actions?
Yeah, I'll be brief because I absolutely agree with Angela that this, I envision this will require continued community building, that this will require continuing to build trust in the Black community, and well, build trust internal and external. But I think we have to continue to find strategies, and we're doing it with focus groups and research and expanding opportunities beyond nonprofits, but also to businesses, even if we aren't necessarily investing in them now. But I just the more we can continue bringing us together and building a relationship, and gosh, when we get in person, it will be even more beneficial. But we'll get closer to what we want to see. We'll get closer to achieving our goals, and we for sure will be able to bring more people along as we're building community and building trust. And Angela said this earlier, letting people know that absolutely this belongs to you, this belongs to the community. We founded, Black Future Co-op Fund, and we're going to work hard, not just in the startup process, but in the sustainability process. But we have our eyes and hearts set on community, and community will allow this organization to be able to move forward, and the funds that are raised are to be invested back in community. So we'll keep building trust and building community and inching towards our goals, Black liberation.
I love that, Black liberation. All right. So Tawana, we have one last question that I'll ask both of you, but I'll start with you, Tawana. What most moved you about Black Philanthropy Month?
It kind of goes along with what we just talked about, but the convening, I know it was virtual, but watching the conversations, hearing the information, the knowledge, the expertise of folks who are in this work, or curious about this work, or just have something to say about Black philanthropy, I think was so beautiful and inspirational. But just getting our community in the same virtual Zoom room to have this conversation, to be honest, was just kind of the highlight, and really, really beautiful and really moving for me.
Thank you. Angela, what most moved you about Black Philanthropy Month?
God, so many things, but again, I just kept thinking, like, this is us. Like, I was acting a fool in my house by myself, in some of these Zoom rooms, or when we did Facebook Live, and I'm like commenting like crazy because so much knowledge was dropped by the various panelists, right? And to think, like, again, and it just keeps coming back to, this is us.
Yes.
I have such a sense of pride in us. So many obstacles have been put in our way, and still we rise. And so that was the thing I kept thinking about as I looked at the different panelists and the different roles they played, and across the age spectrum. Like, there were some younger professionals who were like, wait, let me write that down. What did you just say? And that we can learn. We're a community who's very much focused on respecting our elders, and we need to continue to do that. But we also need to make room for our young leaders. They're not leaders of the future. They're doing things now. And so how do we make room as a community to hear from them? And so when I say this is us, I mean, we just range in age, and we range in location as well. We were, all over the state. Some were, in different states who were willing to participate with us because they do serve the state of Washington. And we are a force to be reckoned with, is what I came away with. And we need to remind ourselves of that. And we all have different strategies of what that superpower looks like, but every single one of us has it and was born with it. And I'm excited that we're trying to build an infrastructure that supports people shining and using, their superpower on behalf of the Black community. So that, again, it's just like every time I would see a thing, and even this right now, I'm like, this is us.
This is us. Yeah. I'll take off my moderator hat for a brief second and sit, if we were in a room, I'll sit in the panelist chairs alongside you, my sisters, and say that what most moved me was, from the branding to the material, to the topics, to the feelings, how we just consistently connected us intergenerationally. And Angela, you'd often talked about this during the inception of the fund, right? We want to be good ancestors. But being good ancestors means that we're looking back, right? We're looking back to our ancestors and we're connecting them and their struggles and their goals and their visions to today, to present day, all the way through to our descendants. And so that's what moved me. When Alex, our Iskinder, talked about the thumbprint is our DNA that crosses over intergenerationally, right? When Iskinder talked about the okra and understanding that the okra, right, was brought on those slave ships all throughout the diaspora. Those things moved me and it helped me understand how we're so closely connected. And I'd say what moves me overall about us and this work is that we just continue to fulfill each other for Black women as we struggle in our own individual daily lives to show up every day on behalf of community, to show up on behalf of our organizations, and to show up on behalf of our state. And I just love our energy, how we complete each other, how we fulfill each other. So thank you. And with that, I will bring us to a close. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Thank you again, Angela and Tawana, for your time, your participation, your love and care of community, for sharing your stories and insights. And thank you all for participating in this virtual event and being part of this continued conversation about Black philanthropy. You can rewatch this session, of course, and check out our previous events by visiting blackfuturewa.org/BPM 2021. We'll put it in the comments for you, the address. And finally, let us know your thoughts on Washington Black Philanthropy Month by taking our brief survey. Check out the link in the comments for access to the survey. And thank you again for joining us.